So what do we call this segment? Dramatics Comics? Or it's Comic Shock Top?
Comic Shock Top. See, it's a tongue twister, dude.
Perfect. Perfect. Today we're gonna get into one of the events currently going on with Marvel. We'll be talking about Marvel and DC, but for today we're talking about Marvel in particular. We were gonna review the Hell Hydra stupid title, Steve Rogers Captain America, but we decided not to because anybody that reads comics knows that whenever they do something monumental like that, especially if you read comics, you know what's going to happen. Later on, some time warp or some crazy thing that never happened, an alternate universe,
or he's being brainwashed,
or he's being brainwashed at the moment, or something. Anybody that reads comics knows that usually that happens. It's basically to get people to read the comic. I mean, this is the first time in a long time people that I didn't even know read comics were talking about it, and they don't read comics, and they were talking about that. So I mean, for the most part, Marvel did its job. But today we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about something I feel was like a restart for Marvel. I feel like this time they got it right. Like honestly, Bendis understands what he's doing as far as writing the characters out. Like, he understands the characters.
He understands who they are and what their background is.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So obviously, as you well know, I was just talking about Civil War 1, and we're going to be talking about Civil War 2 that just came out last month. This time around, it's not Captain America and Iron Man. It's actually formerly known as Miss Marvel. It's... Do you know?
Who is it?
Captain Marvel.
Oh, okay.
So it's Captain Marvel, which is Carol Danvers. And Carol Danvers is on one side, and of course you still have Tony Stark, which is fine. Tony Stark is on the other side. So the basic premise of this story, to kick off Civil War 2, is there is an Inhuman that can predict the future, and something big happened in this comic that kind of got me reeling for a little bit. Spoiler alert, I don't this is a big event that happened in issue 1. I know I told you. I mean, if you want to know it, stay here and listen. If not, go read the comic. It's an awesome comic. Or if not, if you just want to listen to what happened, just sit there and watch. James Rhodes gets killed. War Machine ultimately gets killed by Thanos, based on a premonition by this Inhuman named Ulysses. And that's the name of the Inhuman that this whole war is about, because it's about the future of the superhero community, and the rest of the world is, can they believe what this Inhuman, what he feels, what he goes through. And there's bigger things that happen in the next issues. I've read up to issue 4. We're just going over these two because it'll be too much if we just throw out everything in the first episode of Comic Shop Top. And so yeah, that's one of the biggest things, and that's what really triggers Tony Stark. It really angers him, and that's what kind of starts splitting the line in the sand between the two sides. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal for anybody that reads comics, especially Marvel comics, how big of a character War Machine is. I mean, I know in Civil War 1, the first one, Giant Man gets killed by the android Thor. Yeah, it was an okay character, and not a lot of people reacted on that. But this is War Machine.
Is Deadpool in this comic?
Deadpool is in the comic. He's not as prominent yet. He actually has his own tie-in to Civil War 2, which is the main title to Deadpool. The main title is essentially his own tie-in to the Civil War 2, but he is part of the
What side is Spider-Man on?
There's two Spider-Men in this title. They both have the Miles Morales Spider-Man, and then they have Peter Parker Spider-Man. Peter Parker is on Carol Danvers' side, which makes total sense. Miles Morales, he's a fairly new Spider-Man, but he is on Tony Stark's side.
Okay.
For Deadpool, he's really not on anybody's side, which is pretty smart on Michael Bendis' side. That's knowing the characters and knowing the material. He's not on either side. He's kind of like both sides. He just wants to create chaos. Yeah. It's Deadpool. So yeah, and that's pretty much the gist of Civil War 2. It's a great comic. Go out and get it at your local comic shop. It's a great time to get into comics. If you're not into comics or you're barely getting into them, great. It's perfect time to get in, especially with like DC. They just flushed out all the Rebirth. There's a lot of comic book characters that struggle to have their own title because of their popularity, which is sad, but it's the truth. For instance, like Moon Knight. I love Moon Knight. Whenever there's a title for Moon Knight coming out, I make sure I get as many of them as possible before it goes out, because it's almost a guaranteed thing. Like Vengeance the Moon Knight, I think lasted like 10 issues. So I'm collecting all of the Moon Knight, the current Moon Knight issues for the title. I'll also bring those out so that if you're not familiar with Moon Knight or not really into his character or want to know more about him, you'll get to see in that episode. Stay tuned next time. We're gonna go ahead and talk about issue 3 and 4 and our other shows. We're gonna have other shows talking about different things, not just comics. And once again, my name is Sergio. This is Comic Talk Shop.
My name is Ethan.
And that's Ethan. And hope to see you guys in the next video.